Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. Welcome. So today we're going to talk about Gothic 1 Remake. This is the Gothic 1 Remake. And we're going to talk about tips and tricks for getting started on your own playthrough. What can you do to get a more optimal, fun playthrough? If you're like me and you like to dive in without any safety guards or handrails, you may find the experience to be a bit rough. So I'm going to go over some of the beginner tips and tricks when you first start the game. Now, the first thing that you're going to get to is you're going to get to this town here, which is the... I hate him. You're going to get to this town here, which is the, I think it's called the old camp or whatever. There's also the new camp, and then there's the swamp camp. There's a bunch of different things. First thing that you're going to want to know is you really want to start the quest with Thorus as quickly as you can and get everything set up in town. And the reason for this is because Diego, who is your first quest starter, will not give you the option to upgrade your strength and dexterity until after you've talked to Diego. He'll tell you, not now. This is because there is a bug in the quest line where essentially if you don't do the specific quest line required through Thorus, and you have to talk to his entire, do his entire line, tell him you want to work for Gomez, basically ask him for tests, and he tells you to go talk to Diego. This reactivates Diego and allows Diego to actually give you some quests, and you have to do the whole thing. I can't remember. Let's see. I'll make it simple, and the only way then I guess I'll do that. There we go. So I believe we've been redirected back to Diego at this point. And so now that we've been redirected back to Diego,
I spoke to Thor and that he'll let me see go. Looks like you knew this, did? Because I want you to figure out. Give me the rundown. Easy. There's some.
Now you can ask him to teach you some skills.
Besides him, just ask. Where do I find this? He lives when you're in front.
And then you can say, "Can you teach me some skills?"
Teach me something?
What he will teach you is nothing. He basically gives you stat boosts. So you can trade your LP, which is your learning points, for either more strength or more dexterity. This is very important and something that I didn't know early on that I could do, and by the time I found out, it was way too late, and it was really stupid. And I'm going to explain to you why this is so important, especially for your early playthrough, so that you can understand exactly why you need to know this and why you need to find Diego early on in the game. First off, weapon damage. So when you're looking at your weapons, you have a bunch of different weapon types. You've got your blunt weapons, which are mainly your maces. You've got your edge weapons, which are mainly swords. There also are two-handed swords and things like that as well. Let me get away from Diego. I'm tired of hearing him talk. So in general, you've got your blade, you've got your blunt, and then you also have your range. So you have bows. Mud is so annoying. He is one of the most annoying creatures in the world. He ends up dying early on. I don't really much care about it either. Your bows are point damage. Point damage is another stat that you can have access to. There's a lot of different damage stats in the game. There is blunt, point, blade, fire, ice, etc., etc. There's a bunch of them. Basically, it all revolves around how damage works in the game. And if you don't know how damage works in the game, then you're not going to be able to understand how to properly scale that damage in terms of monsters. So when you go and you attack a monster, and I'm literally just reloading the game because I'm tired of Mud interrupting me. So when you go to actually attack a monster, the damage of your weapon, specifically, so your damage of your bow, is only one part of the equation, right? So early on in the game, the problem is that most monsters have more armor than you have damage. Let's pretend I was shooting at myself in this situation, right? So I currently have a Horn Warbow, which is 68 damage. So let's actually just run this on a calculator. It's pretty easy. So I have a 68 damage weapon. And my current dexterity is 67, so plus 67, which gives me a damage of 135. My current point defense is 45, so we're going to subtract that, and that's going to give us our total damage output, which is 90. Now, the problem with this is that early on in the game, the monsters have really high blunt and edge resistance, and you have very low strength. You only have 10 strength. And most of the weapons that you'll find, like the best weapon you'll find early on is like 14 maybe 15 if you're lucky, which if you add that to your 10 strength is a total of 24 damage. In my particular case, let's pretend somebody was attacking me, and let's use my lowest attack, my defense, right? So let's pretend they were attacking me with fire or ice, which is 28, which is the lowest one I have. Well, 28 minus is -4. What does this mean? This means you do 0. So the first thing that you need to know is Diego scales Dex/strength, and Dex/strength is damage, right? So early on in the game, if you don't know this, you're going to struggle. You're going to absolutely struggle. And this is something that you really have to know about in advance. Otherwise, you're just going to not be able to kill anything. You're going to walk out and you're going to try to attack something and you're going to do 0 damage. And you're not going to know why you're doing 0 damage. The next one is defense. So in the same exact regard that your offense is very important and understanding how to actually deal damage to a target, your defense is also very important. Now, early on in the game, armor is practically non-existent. You will eventually get access to armor via the quest line, or you can save up your ore and you can purchase one of the digger outfits, but for the most part, you're not going to get a lot of armor early on. There are some rings that you can get access to that I highly recommend that you use when you first start, and this is actually a couple different items. So number one is the Amulet of Armor. You can actually find this relatively early. I can't remember exactly where I found it, but I know it was like really early in the game. Make sure that if you get this, you're using it, because it gives you 15 edge and 15 blunt resistance, which will help you tremendously versus most monsters in the game. You should also at some point find this ring. Not the Warrior's Ring. Where is the Ring of Iron Skin? Yes. The Ring of Iron Skin also gives 10 edge and 10 blunt, and you can actually find 2 of these relatively early in the game, and you're going to want to wear both of them and the amulet together, because until you have armor, your rings and your amulet literally are your armor, and you really can't get away from it for the time being. Later on in the game, you'll start finding some better versions, like you'll find this Ring of Ore Skin, which is slightly better than the other one. There's also a couple ones that are kind of like mediocre, like the Ring of Greater Invincibility, which don't have more than the Ring of Iron Skin, but just give you more of other stats, which is fine, I guess. For the most part, your defensiveness on your character is very important. You will get access to these rings early on too, the Warrior's Ring of Power, which give you strength and dexterity, which, as we talked about earlier, is damage, right? But the problem is that since you have no defenses, most monsters will literally one-shot you, and I mean literally one-shot you, due to your low hit points and also your low defenses. There's really not much in the way that these rings are actually useful early on, because you can't use them or you'll die. Now, your body armor pieces, you will eventually get access to some basic armor via quest lines. There's basic armor in just about every quest line. The basic armor can be upgraded, but it requires a lot of ore resources to upgrade. And once you get it upgraded, it looks something more like this. However, this is literally like, I can't remember the exact amount. Let me calculate it out here for you real quick. So to turn this poopy armor into something more like this, it's going to cost you like 800 plus 600 plus 300 for a total of like 1700 ore, which as a new character is completely impossible. Like, it's just not something that you're going to be able to do. You can eventually get to the point where you can start getting that, but it's not going to be very helpful to you early on. So moving on to the next point, which is money, or in this case, ore. Ore is very difficult to come by early on in the game, although it does get slightly better later on in the game. And I'm going to go back to some of my earlier saves here, maybe one where Mud's already dead. That'd be great. Maybe one where Mud's already dead. Let's try this one. So one of the things that you have to know is where all of your NPCs are, because each NPC has a limit on how much that they're able to buy. Also, keep in mind that the NPCs seem to give different prices depending on like what kind of products those NPCs want. I've noticed, for instance, that if you're trying to sell spell stuff, it's better to sell your spell stuff to a mage, because the mages are more interested in the spell items and have a better tendency of giving you good prices. There's random vendors all over the place, like Mordrag, who you will eventually have to get rid of. But if you look at his inventory, you'll see he only has 28 ore to give away anyway. So when you're selling things to him, like, you really just can't really get very much from him. You can sell him items that you have, but keep in mind that the more you sell him, the more the price will diminish on those items. You can actually see the prices decrease on a lot of things, like when you sell multiple of the same item. Like if I sell 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't look like the food stuff is subjected. Let's try something like the arrows. But generally, the more that you sell of a specific thing to somebody, the lower the price that they will offer you. And eventually it gets to the point where it reaches 0. It depends on the items specifically. But as you can see, I can't really sell this stuff to him or buy this stuff from him. This is buying, that's why. So let's go to sell. And buying, they keep the same price the entire time. They don't care about that. So let's look at something that has a high quantity. So let's take this one right here. So if I sell him one of these, it's 4, 2 of these is 4, 3 of these is 4. Now look, when I get to the fourth one goes down to 3, and so forth and so on. And it eventually will reach 0 if you sell them too many of the same product. Like for instance, I have 35 steaks. If I sell 18 of those, notice it drops to 2. And then eventually if I sell like 12 more, it drops to 1. And then eventually I can sell enough that it will reach 0 money. Selling the same thing over and over again to NPCs is generally not a good idea. Even weapons, like when you start selling weapons, you'll notice that all these clubs are currently at 0. It's not because the clubs are worthless, it's because I've sold so many clubs to the NPCs that they reach 0 value. So number 1, make sure that you're varying your products. Number 2, know your vendors, because you're going to have to know all the vendors in terms of like getting all your equipment, right? Or your ore. So if you want to sell things to every vendor and steal every vendor's ore, you need to know where all the vendors are. So like Mordrag is one, Fisk is another one of the vendors. You can also sell and buy things from Dexter. There's also a mage that's here in the beginning, but I think his name is Thorus. Yeah, Thorus will also sell you things. He's better for selling magical items too, specifically because he is a mage that likes to buy magical stuff. He also buys books and things like that as well. So if you have any magical items that you can sell, like for instance, he gives 45 for the transform into lurker and 170 for the firebolt spell. Let's see how much Fisk gives for the same items.
Show me your goods.
Could be the same, it could be different. Let's see. Yeah, so Fisk only gives 81 for the firebolt spell and only 22 for the lurker spell. As you can see, like, not every vendor values the products the same. So there is kind of like a whole little mini game of understanding exactly like which vendors to go to, hitting up all the vendors in every single town, selling all the stuff to them, and basically getting as much ore as possible. But early on, it is very difficult to get ore. It's just not a lot of things that you can sell. And this also has to do with the fact that, well, there's just not a lot of items that you get from monsters that you kill. And this has to do with the whole hunting aspects of the game. So in the game, there are basically like trophies that you can take from monsters, or rather animals, and you have to know how to actually extract those trophies. There's a couple people that will teach you how to extract the trophies, and I was originally told that the trophies were bad, and they didn't give you good money, but honestly, I disagree. I feel like the trophies make it so that all the monsters that you kill actually have some value, and because the monsters actually have value, when you kill large swaths of them, and I literally mean large swaths of them, you start to get a large number of items that you can sell. And it adds up over time. Unfortunately, the people that teach you this stuff charge you ore to teach you this stuff, and it does become a pain in the butt, in my opinion, early on, because you don't really have a lot of ore early on, which is why I recommend learning how to properly buy and sell things in the game. Another thing that you're definitely going to want is maps. There is a map vendor in the beginning of the game. I think it's Herrick, but
You. Why are you asking? Good job. No, that means we. Oh, man.
oh, no, it's not him. He wants to punch me, though. Stupid punk. I can't remember who it is that sells the maps. Is it Jesse, or is it... you could do a quick Google search.
As long as I'm staying out of it. You gotta be careful what you're saying.
So the Mapmaker is Graham. Typically wanders near the main entrance and sells a map of the colony.
Hey, you. What do you just want? For example, you want. Oh.
I'm not talking to you, Jesse. Alright, so let's go find the Mapmaker. He's usually near the main entrance. His name's Graham, and you definitely want to pick up a map early on in the game if you don't already have one. Here he is right here.
Hey.
Tell him that you want to buy a map. And he's got several good maps in here, as well as a picture of some hoochies. There's the map of the old camp, map of the colony. You could pick up more maps in other places, but you definitely want at least the map of the colony early on. It's absolutely huge, because it lets you do this. And you can actually see the map of what's going on in the game. Definitely one of the issues early on is that you don't have a map, and you can't see where you're going. You don't really know where Graham is, or that Graham even sells a map. But if you follow the quest line, eventually someone will specifically say to go to Graham and pick up a map. So like it's not something that you will always be withheld from you, but it's definitely something that will be withheld for you from the beginning. There's also no markers on the map for like hardly anything, and that kind of pissed me off. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of like where everything is without trying to spoil too much. So where you came from was right here. This is the beginning starter zone. If you want to like mark these on the map, this is something that you're going to have to go back to eventually. So just go ahead and like put a mark here as this being like the start area. This is the swamp over here. This is the swamp town. So if you want to go to the swamp town, this is the area. There's actually pathways on the map so you can see exactly where you're going. This is new camp over here. New camp is essentially just the other camp. So this is old camp and this is new camp. New camp is run by the water mages. Old camp is run by the fire mages. That's pretty much all you need to know without spoiling too much. Up here is the old mine. This is the mine that you're going to have to go to eventually to do mine-related activities. There are some quests and things that you need here. Now, this one over here is kind of tricky because nobody talks about this one. This one is the free mine, which is a different mine entirely. It is something that you will have to go to eventually, depending on your quest lines. Other than that, we also have... I don't think if there's anything else worth pointing out. Like over here-ish, there are some NPCs that are very important. There is one NPC over here that trains you in mounts. So there actually is a mount in the game, and there is an NPC over here that trains in mounts. He will actually get you a mount that you can ride around on, which is really freaking cool. He's fast. I highly recommend that you do the quest for the mounts as early as you possibly can, because it is a great boon for getting around on the big map. There is also another vendor over here who will train you in the hunting trophies. So if you bring him books on specific animals, he will train you on how to extract specific materials. There is also another NPC around this area. I can't remember the exact location, but he's around here somewhere. I think it might be like maybe right here-ish. This NPC will also train you in trophies, but he's the one that charges you money. I highly recommend that when you have the money, you grab it because it is extremely useful. Also, you have your own hut in town. So this is something that you may or may not know, but there is a hut in town that is yours that you can sleep in. So you don't have to like sleep in some random guy's hut and get fleas or something. If you run around, you can find your hut. It's always in the same location, which is over here by the arena. So if you go over here by the arena where you see the obvious circular area where two people are fighting, you see this hut right here with these big red tarps on it. Not all of them have red tarps, but this one in particular has like 1, 2, 3, 4 red tarps on it. This one is yours. So you can sleep in this bed anytime you want to. There's also a chest here, but I never put anything in it. There's no like limit to how much you can carry in this game. So, and that's another tip that I would give you is that there's no limit to anything you can. There's no you know, like limits for what you can carry, which pretty much means pick up everything. Like, there's no reason not to pick up everything that you can freaking pick up and sell it in town or whatever. Like, it really doesn't matter. That there's not much consequence to picking up everything that you can possibly pick up. There's some good stuff that you can potentially get. There's alchemy ingredients, there's spells, and tons of things that people are interested in, you know, obviously working on. Another thing that you need to know is that lockpicking is absolutely atrocious in this game, and I would highly recommend that, like, for your own sanity, for your own sanity, I would just give yourself master lockpicking. The lockpicking in the remake is just awful. It's awful to the point where you're either going to want a mod to change out the lockpicking with something better. That's option A. Is a mod. Option B is basically give yourself lockpicking. Picking skill. I did find that when you have master lockpicking, you essentially can actually pick the locks. Let me put it as clear as possible. When you have no lockpicking skills, it is impossible to pick some locks. It is actually physically impossible to pick some locks. On top of that, the locks that are pickable are so ridiculously difficult that it could take you hours to figure out the combination, and you'd have to reload and save scum like hundreds of times. Whereas if you use the master lockpicking and you just move on from this atrocious system, I think you'll find that the lockpicking system is actually kind of fun with master. It is not fun without it. You can use some mods if you're on PC. There's a couple save editors. There's a Gothic 1 Remake save editor that you can utilize. It's right here. It's Gothic Remake Save Editor.deployo.eu. It works pretty well. You basically just drop your save file in here, and you can just give yourself master lockpicking, which I highly would recommend for the sanity of your playthrough. Being a mage, it's a pipe dream. I don't know exactly how to explain this to anybody who's brand new to the game, but if you're very interested in being a mage, it's not going to happen. Like, early on in the game, when it comes to being a mage, you have to do a lot of quests to get access to either the fire mages or the water mages, and you will also need a large amount of LP to get access to the different circles. And each circle, there's multiple circles. There's circle 0 to like 6 as far as magic is concerned. And the problem is that, like, the basic spells that you get access to as a baby character they're really good early on, and then they fall off really fast. And tier 1 and tier 2 spells are not going to pull you through the game, so it takes a considerably large amount of effort to get access to any mage stuff, and then it takes a considerable large amount of effort to even become a mage to get access to the mage stuff that was hard to get access to. I don't really know how to explain it other than that. Like, there are tools that you need to be a mage that are hard to get access to, and then there is also, like, the actual training to be a mage, which is also hard to get access to. So starting as a mage is just not really a viable, like, outcome. You can eventually become a mage. I would highly recommend that if you're interested in becoming a mage of a fire or water type, that you do a little bit of research and you look into who you need to talk to and what quests you need to complete, and probably beeline for the mage. Essentially, because if you don't, it's going to take you like till the end of the game before you get access to any real serious spells. Bow versus crossbow. It's not really something that you're going to have to worry about early on, but the crossbow sucks. It is definitely really good damage. It's very high damage. It's like 2 times the damage of a normal weapon, but at the same time, it's also like the worst. It's so terrible to use. There is training you can get for it that makes it slightly better, but it is just so bad to use. I would not recommend it at all. This person right here is the guy who actually trains in lockpicking. His name is Fingers. Yeah, Fingers. Appropriate for a guy who trains in lockpicking. So if you talk to him, he'll actually train you in lockpicking 2 or 3. As you can see, it costs 10 and 100 ore. Everything costs ore in this game for training. It's pretty bad. But this does make the lockpicking easier. He's one of the early trainers that you get access to. I did not engage at all with pickpocketing. There's a lot of quests in the game that you can do. There's not really a lot of information that you can get on the quests except for this. It does keep a log of like everything that you've done in the quest, helping you to understand like where you are in the quest line. There's also a glossary of whether you've pissed off everybody or killed them or whatever, which is mildly useful. The stats panel is also extremely useful because it gives you an idea of how much damage you're doing and how well your like blunt and edge resistance are going. It also gives you a list of like your skills. Also, there you go right here. This is also important. Make sure you get acrobatics, which can be gotten from the Dam Supervisor in New Camp. Get the climbing skill, which is gotten from the guy at the beach in Swamp Town. And then the diving, let's see, diving, no, acrobatics is, sorry, acrobatics is not from the dam. Diving is from the dam. Climbing is from the guy at Newtown, and acrobatics, I can't remember where acrobatics was, actually. Let me see, acrobatics trainer. I'm pretty sure he was in New Camp. Yeah, so he's in New Camp. His name is Buster. Buster in New Camp will train you in acrobatics. I highly recommend that you get acrobatics as well because it allows you to fall from further heights. It allows you to jump farther. There's a lot of like parkour type puzzles in this game. And if you don't have access to diving, climbing, and acrobatics, you're going to have a hard time in general with the game. So make sure that you're getting access to those specifics. Anything else I can think of for a new character? I'm trying not to like spoil too much about the game. You can pick up these baby armors. I talked about these earlier. You can buy these from the shop. I'm not exactly sure, thinking back, that this was the best idea, because if you join a faction and you get into one of the factions, you can essentially get one of these little freebie armors, for free relatively early, these like mercenary and shadows armors and whatnot, and they're about equivalent to the digger equipment. However, like, they can be upgraded eventually to be much better than the digger equipment early on. So this like digger shirt is just not amazing. That's for sure. Weapons, you can find a lot of weapons early on. So let me state this unequivocally. You will find a buttload of weapons. Exclamation point times 3. The problem is that most of the weapons that you find will have very high strength or dexterity requirements and will basically prevent you from being able to utilize them unless you beef up your strength or dexterity. And this goes back to what I talked about in the beginning of this video, which is Diego scales your strength and dex. This is something that you definitely need to do to get access to the better weapons so that you can kill the monsters. If you don't, you'll never be able to kill anything. And then this also goes back to being a mage. So why I call it a pipe dream is that early on you get access to a spell called the fire spell. It's this one right here. And it's like the only spell that you basically have access to. It has 35 fire damage, which is actually kind of nice, except for the fact that a lot of the monsters in the game have, well, a lot more than 35 fire resistance. So once you get into the higher parts of the game, the Firebolt spell becomes completely useless and does 0 damage whatsoever, which means that you have to do damage with weapons, and you need strength and dexterity to do damage with weapons. Now, building your strength and dexterity is not bad. As I said earlier, it also increases your damage because it's a very flat equation. You can actually just write it down. It's stat plus damage equals total. Like, there's really nothing more fancy about it than that. They didn't go with any kind of crazy equation. It's literally just stat plus damage equals total. And then it's literally total versus defense of the monster equals damage, right? So if you wanted to write that out in a better way, let's pretend I had like 30 damage weapon plus a 30 strength equals 60 versus a 50 monster, the defense monster, which means that my total damage would be 10, right? So it's not as complicated as it seems, but early on in the game it definitely becomes kind of convoluted and you don't really understand what's going on. You die a lot. It is what it is. Certain monsters definitely have weaknesses. So this is something that we also need to talk about is monsters do have weaknesses. You may find that you attack a monster with a specific weapon like blade and it does no damage, then try blunt. And maybe blunt does no damage, then try point. And if point does no damage, then maybe try fire. Honestly, there's really no limit to how much you can potentially get here. Just play around with the different damage types and see which one works best against the monsters. Like, for instance, skeletons. Blunt works better against skeletons. They are weak to blunt. They're like ice golems are weak to fire, and so forth and so on. So as you are playing, and you fight maybe like a big giant golem that's made out of stone, well, a mace works really good on stone because it causes the stone to get cracked up. Speaking of fire, make sure you get your free fire stone. So early on in the game, when you first start, you will come across a NPC named Thorus. I already talked about him earlier. Thorus is the resident mage that actually exists outside of the castle. I don't know why he's outside of the castle. He does disappear eventually. So if you don't get it from him early on, you're going to miss out on your chance entirely. So make sure you talk to Thorus and you get access to your stone. He'll actually give you an option of 2 different stones, and if you want the more cost-effective option, you actually don't want to get the Firestone, because the Firestone is the cheaper of the 2 that he sells you, or he gives you for free, essentially. So when you talk to Thorus, Thorus will actually give you a little quest, and he'll offer to give you one of the 2 stones as a trainee. And the 2 stones are the Firebolt Stone and the Healing Stone. You'll notice that the Healing Stone is much more expensive than the Firestone. So if you happen to have enough ore to buy the Firebolt Stone, it's actually more cost-effective to ask him for the Healing Stone and then buy the Firestone instead of vice versa, because the Healing Stone is more expensive.
That's what you think.
If you're not an alchemist, and you probably aren't because it takes you quite some time to get access to the alchemy skill. There are a lot of items in the game that can still heal you or give you mana, and they're basically just ingredients. You'll find them all over the place, like Siren's Hair that give you 9 mana per second and 9 health per second. Well, early on, you really don't have a lot of mana. You only have like 10 mana total. So these items like this, like these Siren's Hair, will actually fully heal your mana early on in the game. And basically, these potions are kind of useless. These potions heal like massive amounts of mana, like 70, 50, etc., right? And you don't really have enough mana to actually utilize them. You can build your mana with Thorus, again, going back to Thorus, and eventually you'll be able to do this with some other NPCs. But as I said, Thorus disappears early on in the game if you don't talk to him and you advance the quest too quickly. So if you talk to him, he will offer to, like, augment your HP or your mana. And then later on, he stops or he disappears entirely, and you have to augment your mana with other NPCs. It's usually a mage, either a water mage or a fire mage will offer you the skills to be able to increase your mana. And they charge you like 1 LP per mana point, which is kind of insane. But if you want to be a mage, you really do need a lot more than 10 mana on your pool. And later spells require a hell of a lot more mana than 10, if that makes any sense. Trying to think if there's anything else without completely spoiling the game here. You can get access to two-handed skills later on, two-handed weapons, and two-handed weapons are actually really good. I would highly recommend that you get access to two-handed weapons, but the problem is that two-handed weapons are also very high strength requirement, and you're not going to get access to any of them early on in the game. So building specifically around two-handed weapons is next to impossible in the beginning, and you're probably going to want to pick up some skills in specific things. Like, don't be afraid to grab, at the very least, like swordsmanship 1, right? So sword 1. Don't hesitate to pick up like bow 1. Those are both really good early on that will help you attack and kill things. You're also mastering, and either of those is actually really good because there's a lot of really good one-handed weapons and there's a lot of really good bows. You don't get access to crossbows skill, and you don't get access to two-handed skill until like much later. New Camp has a two-handed skill, and also I think Thorus right there at the gate will teach you, but Thorus only teaches wardens, and the New Camp only teaches mercenaries, so you have to become part of their rabble before they will allow you to do anything. Which camp should you join? Which camp should you join? To be honest with you, I joined the old camp. I did a lot of research into it, and it didn't seem like it really mattered, to be perfectly honest. It seems like there is a quest line, and the quest line is irrespective of which camp you join, and so it doesn't really matter what camp you join. It's going to, you know, take you through a quest line regardless. Now, you can, of course, join any of the camps that you want to, but the storyline is still going to proceed exactly, essentially, as the storyline would always proceed anyway, right? I'm trying my best to be as vague as possible without spoiling it. Old Camp does give you access to some interesting things, like being able to like get close to Gomez if you want to kill him and try and steal his armor, which some of the other camps might not get you access to. It really depends. I thought they were all interesting camps. But of course, if you want to be a fire mage, you have to join the old camp, and if you want to be a water mage, you need to join the new camp. That's basically your options there, right? Exploring the map. So talking about the map itself, exploring. There's like so much to explore on the map. You can wander around aimlessly and just find crazy stuff all over the place. There's a bunch of shipwrecks along the coast that you can dive for, which I highly recommend you get the dive skill first because it makes it a lot easier. There's like freaking giant like temples in the mountains. There's freaking all sorts of stuff near waterfalls and all sorts of crazy things like that. There's a whole like orc zone and like crazy amounts of stuff. And oh, it's Bullet. What's up, Bullet?
That's so.
Oh no. I don't know if I could take him with this bad equipment that I've got. Another thing that I can actually add in as a tip here is parrying. So parrying and dodging the attacks are actually pretty huge. So as you can see, if I don't parry the attack, I take massive amounts of damage. If I do parry the attack, I can still take damage, just not as much. When enemies beat you, they steal your stuff. Some of them will kill you, and some of them will just steal your items. You can get back up, and you can fight them again if they don't kill you. And in this particular case, I'm probably going to.
Next time, it'll really hurt.
Get my stuff back. This guy's a absolute dick, by the way. However, if you kill people, it tends not to go very well. They get kind of mad at you, but I think this guy's just kind of like a dick to the entire, like, everybody, so nobody cares when you kill him. And parrying and dodging and things like that are actually very important. So we should probably talk about that for a second. So parry, block, and dodge. These are all very effective when you're fighting in combat with monsters or players or anybody. So when you're fighting, if you want to parry, you have to parry at the exact moment that the monster attacks you. And this is important because otherwise it just counts as a regular block and it doesn't give you the special benefits that parry gives you. Which parry gives you a lot of interesting benefits like being able to riposte and also being able to just in general stop the monster from being able to do much of anything. If I could find a monster here, I will show you the difference between a parry and a regular attack, regular block. And then, of course, you can also dodge. Now, dodging is literally just pressing the Alt key. The Alt key will allow you to dodge, as you can see, which can just get you out of the way. Depending on the monster type, this is actually really effective. There's a couple monsters in the game that... yeah, they're very, very effective to dodge instead of actually fighting. I don't really want to fight the Bloodfly. I think the Bloodfly is going to kill me, but let's just go ahead and test our luck anyway, shall we? The Bloodflies tend to gang up on you. And I mean it. They tend to gang up on you, so early on in the game, they will absolutely destroy you. So do be careful. Alright, so parry. That was just a block. And as you can see, I'm still taking damage anyway. So you can only block so many times before eventually you run out entirely. And if you miss a block, you're going to take a massive amount of damage and you're going to die. Let me go to one of my newer saves where I actually have some armor so that we can play around with how the blocking works. So let's go to Mr. Glowing Monster guy over here. Oh, he's already dead. Alright, so here's another one right here. So I'm going to show you how this works with, like, a mine crawler. So, if you get a perfect parry, you actually riposte them. It actually has, like, a little effect and everything, causing the monster to kind of temporarily reel backwards. Giving you an opening, essentially, to be able to attack back. There's also a special kick that you can do that also works. Making the combat actually kind of reactive, right? And if you get in trouble, you can always back away, or you can move around to the back of them, which actually does help out a lot on some monster types that generally don't have good, like, turn speed. There's also a lock-on that you can utilize. So the tab key is your lock-on key, and it is useful in combat to get you into the right positioning that you need to be in. I'm going to go ahead and dodge around to the back of this guy. And as you can see, he actually turns kind of fast. and he'll kill me. In fact, these guys are actually notoriously nasty. It's one of the reasons why I think I had saved it at this particular spot, because I was having trouble fighting these guys specifically. And my defenses are crazy on this particular character. Quick save is mildly useful, but I would make sure that you're not utilizing it too often, otherwise you could end up bricking your save. So, for instance, if you are quick saving the game a lot, you can only quick save 3 times. So this is very important. When you're looking at your quick saves, you can only have 3 active quick saves at any given time, and your next quick save will delete the last quick save. Quick save is F5, so you can press F5 to do the quick saves. I don't want to do that right this second. I highly recommend, though, that even if you use your quick saves, save often. I would say this: save often and save even more. It's so easy to die in this game. You really want to make sure that you have quick saves before you go into any serious encounter, and you also want to make sure that you are, of course, making hard saves every now and then. Hard saves are actual real saves that you go in here and do manually, as opposed to the quick saves, because if all you ever do is quick saves, you will basically have no saves left, like, at all. You won't be able to go back if there's some sort of catastrophic issue. You won't be able to go back if you make the wrong choice in an NPC encounter. In general, like, you're not going to be able to go back to any of your early encounters at all, which is an issue. So make sure you're hard saving, but also use the quick save as necessary in between, you know, like, a combat and fights, so that you're actually being able to, you know, like, keep your runs going. Try to remember if there's anything else to really talk about. I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it for a beginner's guide. I don't want to go too much into the nitty-gritty of, like, more specific things. But just to do a recap here, Diego scales your dex and strength, and you do have to do the Thorus quest to get access to that. Your stat plus your damage on your weapon is your total damage, and also your defense, you know, of the monster, and your defense essentially is how much damage you take or how much damage the monster takes. Your armor is practically non-existent early on, so make sure you're getting your armor from your jewelry. This is very important. Your money and ore, you make sure that you're farming as much money as you can from the NPCs every single day, because they don't really have a large pool of money to pull from, right? So if you're focusing on trying to get as much money as you can, you just want to make sure you're taking the NPCs for every penny they got whenever you have a chance. The hunting trophies are really good, but they charge you ore, but grab them when you get a chance, because they definitely are worth it, in my opinion. Make sure you get your map from Graham. Graham is your map guy in Old Town, so make sure you buy your maps. There are other maps that you can collect along the way, but get access to all the maps that you can. Make sure you go talk to the guy that trains you in mounts as early as you can. He needs some specific items that you have to collect, but once you get access to a mount, you can run around much faster. There's no limits. There is no limit for what you can carry. Pick everything up. For your own sanity, give yourself master lockpicking. It's just better. The lockpicking system is atrocious in this game. Either mod it or give yourself the skill. Being a mage is a pipe dream. I would not bet on being a mage early on, but if you want to be a mage, you need to look into the details on how to get to that specific mage type and level up as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to kill anything past, like, the beginning of the game. Crossbow really sucks, honestly, but bow is just, like, amazing. I really don't like the way that the crossbow works, but the damage is really good. If you can get past the functional, like, problems with the crossbow, you might have fun with it. I don't know. I prefer the bow. Make sure you get the diving skill from the dam supervisor in New Camp, the climbing skill from the guy at the beach in Swamp Town, and the acrobatics from Buster. You will find a buttload of weapons, but you won't be able to use any. Make sure you scale your strength and dexterity so you can actually use them. Monsters do have weaknesses, so make sure you're looking for the weaknesses of those monsters, because it helps out a ton in killing them. So rotating your weapons to figure out what weakness the monster has is very, very helpful. Make sure you get your free Firestone from Thorus. Thorus is the guy. He's in Old Camp, and he gives you a free Firestone early on, or a free Healing Stone, depending on which one you want. Make sure you get your mastery in sword and bow early on. It's really cheap. It's only 10 points each, and it helps out a ton for killing monsters. Crossbows and two-handers are not until much later, and you're going to have to wait on those. Which camp should you join? Honestly, old camp is probably the best one, but you can go to any of the camps. It really doesn't matter all that much. Parry, block, and dodge help you tremendously in combat, and make sure you're saving all the time. And quick saving, you want both. You want a quick save, and you want to save all the time. Because you just need lots of saves in this game. It does not auto-save, so let me state that unequivocally. It does not auto-save almost at all. In fact, the only times it ever auto-saved were usually at the worst possible moments ever, and I couldn't even understand why it would auto-save. Like, one time it auto-saved when I was literally in the midst of dying. Like, I might have had it auto-save on the entire playthrough, like, maybe like 10 times total. Which is crazy, because we're talking about, like, 50-plus hours of me playing the game, and it's... yeah. Anyway. As always, do appreciate you guys and gals watching. Hopefully these tips and tricks for Gothic 1 Remake will help your playthrough be more fun, and you won't be pulling your hair out early on. And as always, keep watching.